Madam Speaker, there's a lot of excitement in relation to ongoing issues relating to the finance bill. And as you know, our party is having a parliamentary group meeting. I know that your party had a parliamentary group meeting in the morning. And I'm sure the party will give a position after that. But I'm glad at least people are listening to Kenyans, which is a good thing. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that in principle, I support this bill, but I just want to point out some certain issues around it. And Madam Speaker, even as I'm speaking, I would want to urge Honorable Kaluma to listen to me, because he normally purports to know things about children's issues, even if he's my uncle, but I am an expert in this area more than him. And
you
I would want
the word purports.
You are helping him, Madam Speaker. Have you given him or I proceed?
Allow Honorable Millie to prosecute her matter first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will proceed.
No.
I will proceed,
Kaluma,
Madam Speaker.
I
have said that in principle, I support this bill. However, I just want to comment on certain issues that also relate to some of the things that members have said. And that is that even though I support this bill in principle, the architecture of this bill is challenging. The reason why I want to say the architecture of this bill is challenging, Madam Speaker, number one, is the government normally has a policy on how you legislate on certain issues. And in the children's sector in the last parliament, I brought a child justice bill, and I was encouraged to collapse the child justice bill into the Children Act, because in the past we had almost 66 pieces of legislation relating to children. The government formed a task force that was headed by retired Chief Justice Ichungwah that agreed that we come up with one law on children so that we don't give lawyers a difficult task. When I was representing children, when I was the director of the Cradle, it meant if I wanted to deal with adoption, I had to look for the Adoption Act. If I wanted to deal with the issues of orphans, I would look at the Orphans and Vulnerable Children's Act. If I wanted to look at, there were over 66 pieces of legislation. That doesn't mean that what is provided in this law is wrong. It is actually excellent. But the architecture is not good. Should we kill the bill because of this? Perhaps not. And especially because a member has put in too much effort. But it talks to an executive that is asleep. The executive should advise members, and not only the executive, but also the parliamentary office. And in this case, it is the Senate Legal Office, should have offered guidance. The fact that members want to bring bills doesn't mean you bring it in any format. What they should have done, Madam Speaker, is bring an amendment to the Children Act so that all that is provided here is in the Children Act. Madam Speaker, all that is contained here is what we call children in need of care and protection. And if you actually look at this bill carefully, it contains primarily two major issues: readmission of children who are pregnant into school, and protection of children who have given birth. It is not even dealing with the criminal justice aspect, which is covered under the Sexual Offences Act. And I'm saying in principle, I support this act, but I wish it was done differently. The honorable member has gone quite a long distance, but I'm encouraging the House leadership, both Senate and National Assembly, to the legal departments, take your work seriously. Because the fact that members want to move in, you are the ones who are experts as lawyers, advise them how to do this. And the reason why I'm putting back again to the executive, the same way you asked me to move my child justice bill, which was even in substance, had more critical issues, but we collapsed it and made it smaller as a chapter in the Children Act. Because as a policy, the government had agreed that we collapse all children matters into one. It appears that there is no longer any policy relating to children, because if you look at our budget, for instance, right now, you see we are putting a lot of money into institutionalizing children. Yet the government policy has been against institutionalization. What are we doing? We are building centers to institutionalize children. It means we have no clue what our policy as a government is in relation to institutionalization of children. That is also appearing here. And I want to encourage the president that as soon as he's done with the challenges relating to the finance bill and his deputy, can he then work on the issue of ensuring that there is a clear policy that emanates from the executive to legislation. I've said this in this house, and it might be taken lightly, but in reality, that speaks to a government that is dysfunctional. The right hand does not know what the left hand does. Even when it is private members' bill, it must follow the policy of the government of the day. And that is why, for me, for instance, even though I wanted my child justice bill, the government policy of Uhuru at that time was towards one bill. I let mine die. So that is a reality we have to deal with. Other than that, Madam Speaker, I want to encourage the members. You know, when I'm listening sometimes to what I hear the members saying, I feel very sad when I hear members saying that, you know, in our culture, girls are getting married at 17. And my brother from Kibra, I think he has already left. But I have to invite him to the Parliamentary Caucus on Children and Parliamentarians for Global Action, which are human rights organization for parliamentarians globally. I chair both networks in Kenya. And as a country, we have progressed over the years. We have actually ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have raised standards on protecting our children, that we cannot talk because of men's libido that we lower the age for our children. Madam Speaker, in fact, nowadays it's the opposite. People are amused that I'm sharing that on this finance bill. There is a young man who has written to me when people are writing and telling me, Madam Speaker, stop, make sure the finance bill does not pass. Make sure the finance bill does not pass. A young man instead is writing to me that I am young but I have inches, Madam Speaker. So it is actually the reverse. It's the young men who are now very keen on looking for retirees like me. I don't mean I've retired in my work, but I've retired in that other sector. Telling me about inches. What do I do with inches, Madam Speaker? But what I'm saying is, even for those ones, we must protect our young boys from people, I think we call them coggers or something, who are maybe older, but may want to take advantage of young boys who are young and poor and want to take advantage by giving them money. But in this instance, when a girl is below 18, a boy is below 18, we presume that legally they cannot have sex. And the only challenge we are having under the Sexual Offences Act is ensuring that when they have sex with each other, we treat them as children in need of care and protection. But this is actually dealing with a civil issue emanating from a criminal act. And so, because of the honorable member who has put in so much effort, I will support it, but I would wish that the architecture was done better. I would have spoken more, Madam Speaker, but because of time, just ask those, some of us who are experts in these areas. We can help you and support you. I support, but I wish we would change the architecture, and I'll bring amendments in relation to some of the issues I've seen herein. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Millie Adhiambo. And I think the Honorable Member for Kericho, Honorable Kemei, I hope you're taking notes. This is a very important issue on the architecture, and I think it's something that can be discussed at the committee level. I'm glad that Honorable Millie has raised it. She knows we have come a long way with the Children's Act together. So I think do liaise with her. She has a lot of information and knowledge on this particular point. The Honorable Member for Homa Bay Town.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I'm going to come to you.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, it is in very rare occasions that we agree with the Honorable Millie Adhiambo, who is my niece. But Honorable Speaker, today I agree with Honorable Millie Adhiambo, except where she says I purport to know a lot about children's matters. Honorable Speaker, had intervened because unknown to Honorable Millie, I was taught by the Honorable Speaker law. The one area of law you specialized in at the University of Nairobi and you taught me was the subject of children and the law. And Honorable Millie does not know that inspired by the depth of your teaching, I went ahead and did my master's, specializing on, among others, the law relating to protection of the children. And that is what I would disaccount from Honorable Millie.